Welcome back. You're here because you want to get smart fast. Today, we're heading into Kings Canyon National Park. We're diving into the Big Stump Trail and the really fascinating story of the Mark Twain Tree.
Yeah, it's quite a story. We've pulled together some sources, historical stuff, visitor info, basically, to give you the lowdown on this place.
And the mission today.
Well, we want to understand why this trail, and especially the Mark Twain Tree, are so important. You know, thinking about conservation or impact on nature, that sort of thing.
Okay, let's jump in. Big Stump Trail. Where exactly is it? Give us the lay of the land.
Sure. It's actually super convenient, right near the southwest entrance of Kings Canyon, just off Highway 180.
Okay.
It's close to the Big Stump picnic area, too. So easy to find. And there are, like, two parking options, the main lot, and then a smaller pullout that gets you a bit closer to the Mark Twain Tree stump if you're short on time.
Gotcha. So pretty accessible. And the trail itself. What's the walk like?
It's nice and gentle, a 2-mile loop, roughly, and not much climbing, maybe 200 feet total elevation change.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No, not at all. And the scenery's quite varied. You get grassy meadows, some really nice mature trees, wildflowers sometimes.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah. And a lot of people say it's often less busy than Grant Grove nearby, which is a plus if you want some quiet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A bit of peace among those giants sounds good. Okay, let's rewind a bit. This land has a history way before it was a park, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. For thousands of years, this was home to Native American tribes. The Mono, Yoka, Paiute, Western Shawnee. They knew this land intimately.
Right, a deep connection.
A very deep connection. Then, the 1850s roll around, Europeans arrive.
And things change.
Dramatically. Word starts spreading about these giant trees. I mean, huge trees. And the news travels fast all the way to the East Coast, even over to the UK.
But people didn't quite believe it.
Not really, no. There was a lot of skepticism. It just sounded too unbelievable, these descriptions of trees, so massive.
Huh. It's funny to think about that now, with photos everywhere.
It really is. And that disbelief, well, it led to some pretty drastic actions. Like in 1854, there was this huge tree called the Mother of the Forest.
Okay.
311 feet tall. They actually cut it down and shipped pieces of it to England.
No way. Just to prove it.
Yeah, basically as proof. Like, see? They really are this big. It's kind of shocking, isn't it? Destroying something that incredible just to prove it exists.
That's staggering.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that wasn't the only time something like that happened.
Sadly, no. This area, Big Stump Grove, saw a lot of logging between 1883 and 1889. There was a lumber mill, the Smith Comstock Lumber Mill.
What were they logging them for? Seems like overkill for timber.
You'd think so, but the main demand was actually for fence posts.
Fence posts from giant sequoias.
Yeah, for vineyards and farms down in the Central Valley, which were expanding rapidly. So these ancient, massive trees turned into fence posts. It really shows you how differently they valued these resources back then. And those stumps you see all over the trail today, that's the direct result. That's the logging legacy.
So Big Stump Trail is literally walking among the evidence of that era. Which brings us to the Mark Twain stump. Probably the most famous one there.
Definitely the most famous. It was one of the biggest sequoias known, just enormous. And the effort to cut it down, get this, it took 2 men 13 days of sawing in 1891.
13 days.
13 solid days. And the tree itself, they estimated it was about 1,350 years old when they felled it.
Unbelievable. Just imagine. 13 centuries. Why? Why that specific tree? Was the same reason as the mother of the forest?
Pretty much, yeah. It was all about proving the size, dealing with that lingering skepticism. The plan was to send huge cross-sections to big museums.
Okay.
The American Museum of Natural History in New York got one, and the Natural History Museum in London got another. The idea was, if people saw these massive slabs of wood in person...
They'd have to believe it.
Exactly. They'd finally grasped the scale. And apparently, a piece is still on display in the British Museum today.
So, a piece of it achieved its purpose, maybe. But what happened to the rest of this colossal tree? 13 days of work.
Yeah, well, the rest of it wasn't treated with quite the same reverence. Most of the Mark Twain tree ended up being cut into, you guessed it, grape stakes and fence posts.
Oof. It's quite an ignominious end after all that.
It really is. But the stump itself is still there, and it's a major feature on the trail.
And you can get up close.
Oh, yeah. It's so big they actually built stairs onto it. You can walk right on top.
Seriously?
Yep. And you can see the growth rings really clearly. It gives you such a tangible sense of its age, its sheer size, standing on something that lived for well over 1,000 years.
That must be pretty powerful.
Ooh.
So that's the Mark Twain stump. What else stands out along this trail? Are there other sort of notable features?
Definitely. There are several other things that really tell the story of the place. There's one called the sod tree. It's a living sequoia, still growing, but it has these deep scars in it from an old 19th century crosscut saw. They clearly started to cut it, but maybe stopped.
But it survived.
It survived. It's still healthy. Just shows you how incredibly tough these trees are. Real resilience.
Amazing. What else?
Then there's Old Adam. It's sometimes called the burnt monarch. This one's a big, dead sequoia snag. It looks really gnarled, kind of decayed, very striking.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole grove, Big Stump Grove, is actually named after this tree, Old Adam.
Ah, okay. So even though it did, it's still significant.
Exactly. And very important is the resurrection tree. You find this one near the start of the trail.
Resurrection tree.
Yeah. It's special because it's one of only 2 old-growth sequoias left standing in that particular grove after all the logging.
Wow. A true survivor, then.
Absolutely. We're a real link to what the forest used to be like right there. And one more, the shattered giant.
It sounds dramatic.
It is. It's a huge sequoia that basically just, well, shattered or exploded when it fell. Apparently, sequoia wood, despite the tree's size, can be quite brittle.
Huh. I wouldn't have expected that.
Me neither. But it was such a problem that loggers actually tried to make these things called feather beds.
Feather beds?
Yeah, basically trenches they dig and fill with soft branches and twigs, trying to cushion the fall and stop the trunk from shattering on impact.
Wow. The lengths they went to. It sounds like a really destructive process overall.
It really was. And walking the Big Stump Trail today, I mean, it connects you directly to why we even have national parks.
How so?
Well, you're literally standing amidst the evidence of what happens without protection. It's a stark reminder of the scale of loss and why setting aside lands to prevent that kind of, short-sighted destruction is so crucial.
It's like the landscape itself is making the case for conservation.
Perfectly put, it really highlights the vision of those early conservationists. Sequoia National Park, right next door, basically, was established in 1890, and its specific purpose was to stop the logging of giant sequoias. It was America's second national park, but the first one created to protect a living thing.
That's a great point.
And then General Grant National Park followed just a week later that eventually became part of Kings Canyon in 1940. So these parks were a direct answer to the logging that happened in places like Big Stump.
That context makes the trail feel even more significant. The damage directly fueled the protection efforts. Thinking back to the Mark Twain tree specifically, its story is so odd. Tragic felling, but then this legacy.
It is odd, isn't it? The main driver was ending that skepticism, providing proof. But displaying those huge sections in New York and London, it actually did have a big impact.
Wow.
Well, seeing was believing, finally. It generated this sense of awe, this wonder about the sequoias that just reading about them couldn't achieve. And that public fascination, that appreciation, it helped build momentum for the conservation movement.
So in a weird roundabout way, cutting down one of the greatest examples helped save the rest.
Kind of, yeah. It's a paradox. It really marks a shift, I think, in how people started to view these natural wonders, not just as resources to exploit, but as something precious, something needing protection.
A complicated legacy. Now, for people thinking of visiting today, walking that trail, any key things they should keep in mind? Practical tips.
Oh, definitely. Standard national park stuff, really. Leave no trace is huge. Pack it in, pack it out, stay on the trails. The ground cover is sensitive.
Right.
And remember, it is bear country. So know the bear safety basics. Store your food properly. Maybe make a little noise when you hike so you don't surprise one. Keep your distance from any wildlife you see.
Good advice for anywhere in the Sierras, really.
Absolutely.
Okay, so wrapping this up. Big Stump Trail, Mark Twain Tree. What are the main things we should take away from this deep dive?
I think 2 main things. First, the trail itself is just this incredibly powerful place to see the history of logging, the human impact right there on the ground. It really drives home the scale of what was lost.
A history lesson written in stumps.
Exactly. And second, the story of the Mark Twain tree itself. It's this tale of disruption, yes, but it also played this kind of unexpected role in waking people up and pushing forward the whole idea of conservation in the U.S.
It really highlights that tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between wanting to experience nature Even consume it in a way,
Yeah.
needing to preserve it.
It does. Which leads to maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about that balance. Using nature to educate or inspire versus just letting it be. What does the Mark Twain Tree story tell us about how we saw the natural world back then and maybe how we see it now?
That's a great question to leave us with. Something to chew on. If you get the chance, really, go walk that trail in Kings Canyon. Stand on that stump. It sounds like quite the experience.
There really is.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.